All right, so we're in this chapter called the Chapter of Mitzvot, usually translated as good deeds, but as Rabbi Steinsaltz explained multiple times that the word for mitzvah does not just mean good deed or commandment, but it means connection or partnership. That's because each time we're doing a good deed, we're partnering with God and drawing down his presence to this world. We also spoke of different types of mitzvot. Now we're speaking about the Jewish calendar that is in a way built as a structure for these mitzvot that are also mitzvot of connection, these mitzvot in which we meet God during the holidays or during Shabbat. And the purpose, again, of all of these holidays and special days is to create meetings for God, to create that stage, the setting itself. But then when we show up and we fulfill the mitzvah of Shabbat, or we fulfill the mitzvahs that deal with the holidays, that's when we're actually meeting God. We also mentioned, if you recall, that that's why in Hebrew the word for holidays is Mo'adim, which means not just holidays, but Mo'adim comes from the word Yi'ud, Leya'ed, which also means to set up. And that's because, again, these meetings are set up on those holidays. All we need to do is show up and celebrate this holiday, and through that we'll be meeting God, so to speak. So that was the big idea as of late. Let's continue, as Gila just mentioned, which is in this book again. What page
120?
120?
120.
Day of Atonement, right? Second paragraph, right?
Yeah, right.
Thank you.
Right.
Okay. Does anyone have any other additions? No? Diana, I know you do, but you probably...
Diana does, but she's speaking.
Yeah,
but
she's the only one with that addition. Okay.
And she's
right.
the only one, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can read it and then I'll tell you what it is.
Okay, good. All right. So the Day of Atonement, which is also numbered. So speaking of these holidays and these special days of the Jewish calendar, now we're at the Day of Atonement. Does anyone want to read? Day of Atonement, of course, referring to Yom Kippur, right? Does anyone want to read? The Day of Atonement, which is also numbered.
I can read.
Please, thank you, Diana. Now you found it. Good.
Yeah, on page 90, the Day of Atonement, which is also numbered among the holidays, is a special day. Although a fast day, it is the Sabbath of Sabbaths, embodying a moment in time that is even beyond the Sabbath. It is that day in the year which brings forth atonement, when the lower human world again rises, not only above the cycle of physical life, but also, in a certain sense, above the all-embracing factors determining everything in an individual's own existence. It is the day on which nothing is done because creativity has been halted in the world. It is the day on which nothing is eaten or drunk because primordially man then comes out of the womb of the world to another realm. And only in this standing forth of a man, which is his final release from toil and his exit from the world, does he make contact with that which is beyond the world, with the divine, with the absolute, by the side of whom he is able to move beyond the frontiers of the past, beyond the deeds he has done and the life he has lived, and attain to a higher stage of being and find rest and renewal on the plane of divine forgiveness.
Right. A beautiful description of the Day of Atonement. I wish we could read it every Erev Yom Kippur, every eve of Yom Kippur, because really it encapsulates the essence of what Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, is. But it reminds me really of the famous Hasidic saying by Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Berditchev, one of the great Hasidic masters of some 250 years ago, who would say that there are two 24-hour fast days in the Jewish calendar. If we're already speaking about the Jewish calendar, so let's touch upon those fast days. The first one is Tisha B'Av, and that's when we mourn the destruction of both temples. And the second one is, we know, is Yom Kippur, another 24-hour fast day, to allow God to come and do his job and cleanse us, and that so that the body doesn't interfere. That's really the deeper reason of why we fast on Yom Kippur. But he would say this: the difference between the fast day of Tisha B'Av and the fast day of Yom Kippur is that on Tisha B'Av he would say, who can eat? The sadness is so strong, who can eat? But on Yom Kippur he would say, who wants to eat. That's the difference between the two fast days. We don't want to eat because we're angelic. There's no want for any physicality on Yom Kippur. So on Tisha B'Av, who can eat? On Yom Kippur, who wants to eat? But again, referring to the state that Rabbi Steinsaltz is speaking about here. By the way, we're in, I know it's being asked in the chat, we're on page 120 here, 120 in this edition. But it's referring to this divine state that we elevate ourselves to, and that God, in a way, also comes to elevate ourselves to. And that also explains, and I think it has a deep psychological side to this also, but it also explains why it is called the Day of Atonement, the Day of Forgiveness, in which God forgives us of all of our sins of the past. By the way, just as a caveat, not all of the sins, only the sins that are between us and God. The sins between us and human beings, as you know, we first have to ask for forgiveness from those human beings, and then God forgives us. God won't forgive us on behalf of someone else. We have to own that mistake and say to that person, I'm sorry I hurt you, I'm sorry I insulted you, I'm sorry I humiliated you. And if that person forgives us, then God can come and forgive us for those sins. He'll forgive us no matter what, for missing a prayer, for whatever it is, those mitzvot that are between us and him. But he won't forgive us for the sins between others. Now, if we ask for forgiveness 3 times, and that person, sincerely, of course, right? Not just to check the box, but that we ask for forgiveness 3 times from a person that we may have hurt, and that person after 3 times still does not forgive us, then we've done our duty. Then God will come in and step in and forgive us. But we still have to ask sincerely, be remorseful about those actions and ask for forgiveness. But the reason, going back now, the reason it's called the Day of Atonement, Day of Forgiveness, is because we are elevated to such a divine state. You see, when we elevate ourselves to a divine state, then we shed that outer shell of the past. And we return to who we truly are. And then we realize that any filth that has stuck to us is not a part of us anymore. We've shed that shell. That's what we do on Yom Kippur. We shed the shell of the past. We shed the shell of negativity. And we allow ourselves, our true selves, to emerge. And when we take the fruit out of the peel, so to speak, then the peel goes away automatically. And then the atonement happens. Then there's no filth. On a psychological level, I've used this example before. It's like when I was, for example, when I was a kid, I don't know about you. When I was a kid, one of the games I loved was the game of marbles. Did anyone play marbles? Any one of you? Yeah. So I was addicted to that game. And now I realize through my children that this game still exists. But I couldn't care less about this game anymore. I just couldn't care less. It doesn't attract me whatsoever. Now, why? The game still exists. The reason is because I've matured. And I've matured to a point where that life of mine is not me anymore. It's not attached to me anymore. I'm not attracted to it anymore because it's not me anymore. Same on Yom Kippur. We elevate ourselves to such a divine state that our physical state is not us anymore. It leaves us. It's shed. And therefore, it's the Day of Atonement. Because all those filthy stains from the sins or the marble games that we were enmeshed in don't belong to us. We're on a much higher state. We've matured spiritually. And therefore, again, there is no attachment left to the sins. Thus, the name, the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippurim. That I think has its own psychological lesson that sometimes, we find ourselves addicted in some way or form to some terrible habits, or maybe not addicted, but just enmeshed in them. And some schools of thought will tell you, well, then fight them. And some people fight them with all their might. Or some people also will spend years and years and years trying to understand them, analyze their sins and analyze their failures and beat themselves up. And the Jewish path says, no. Elevate yourself. Work on becoming divine, or not becoming divine, that's the wrong term, but allowing this divinity within you to emerge. Work on igniting a light, and then you'll see that the darkness will go away by itself. And that,
Rabbi, I have a question.
yes,
I think one of the big concepts, however, still has to be lessons from our mistakes. And, I've always kind of chuckled to myself, the Catholics, they go and they ask to be absolved of their misdeeds and, but there is no atonement. There's just like, oh, please forgive me. And I think that we all learn lessons from our mistakes. And
right.
I agree that we should not be dwelling on the mistakes, but I think that sometimes some of the lessons that we learn are the most profound lessons that we learn from our mistakes.
No, very well said. Very well said. And I'm glad you bring this up because really you're right, but that's not what we do on Yom Kippur. That's what we do during the month of Elul, the month that precedes Yom Kippur.
Okay.
That's what we do in a way during the 10 days of Teshuvah from between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Once we've done that, you're right. Once we've returned to ourselves to explore ourselves, right? And to learn from our mistakes, like you just said, then we have to just move on upwards. And then let that peel shed itself, so to speak. And that's really what Yom Kippur is about. Right. By the way, that's why, there's a big argument in the Talmud whether itzumo shel yom mechaper or not, which means does the essence of the day forgive you? Lashavim and lesheinam shavim, for those who return and for those who don't return. In other words, if I am lying on the beach of Tel Aviv, okay, all day long on Yom Kippur, am I forgiven? Does God still forgive me? Am I just as cleansed at the end of the day as someone who spent his entire day in synagogue? It's a big question in the Talmud. And the two opinions, obviously, one says yes, the other one says no. Rabbi Meir says yes. I think Rabbi Yehuda says no. I think it's those two. But the bottom line, the halacha, the Jewish law is that yes, even if you spend all day long at the beach in Tel Aviv on Yom Kippur, God still comes to you and cleanses you on that day. You still are forgiven. Now, doesn't mean, by the way, that you don't have to come to shul on Yom Kippur. I'm not trying to advocate for this here, because the question is not so much whether you are cleansed on Yom Kippur or not. The question is what stays from that cleansing. If you were at the beach on Yom Kippur and you don't really participate in this cleansing, then the next day will be just another day for you and you'll go right back to your bad habits. If you come to shul and you work on yourself too, then you'll ensure that cleansing is sustainable and even becomes permanent. So it's important to remember the long-term effects of your partnership with this cleansing or not. But still, even if you don't do anything on Yom Kippur, God comes and cleanses you. Why? Because in a way, again, he elevates you to that level, looks at your soul, and cleans your soul regardless of your efforts. But that's the power of this day, as explained here by Rabbi Steinsaltz. I will add to this just a Kabbalistic element to go even more deeper. And that is that on Yom Kippur, as many of you know, we have 5 prayers. Usually on a weekday, we have 3 prayers. On a special day like Rosh Chodesh today, or like Shabbat, we have 4 prayers because we had the prayer of Musaf. On Yom Kippur, we have 5 prayers. The 5th prayer is the prayer of Ne'ilah. And that's at the very end of the day. And that's when we are told the gates are about to lock themselves. So let's pray. Let's squeeze in one more prayer. That's why it's called Ne'ilah, the closing of the gates, the locking of the gates. It's just before the gates are locked. But that's the 5th prayer. Why are there 5 prayers in Yom Kippur? 5 prayers according to Kabbalah on Yom Kippur, because each of those prayers relate to the 5 levels of the soul. 5 levels that we spoke about in previous chapters, like the search for oneself and the soul of man, if you recall, 2 years ago maybe. But there are 5 levels to every soul. There are levels of the soul, like the first 3, Naran, Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, that deal with this world, deal either with eating, physicalities of the world, or deal with the troubles of the world, emotional issues, and so on. So you have parts of the soul, the 3 levels, the lower 3 levels of the soul that interact with this world. And the first three prayers of Yom Kippur really relate to those three levels. And then the last two prayers of Yom Kippur, which are Mincha and Ne'ilah, relate to the deeper level of the souls. The deepest one, the Ne'ilah prayer, which correlates again to the deepest level of the soul, is the level of the soul that regardless of what a person does or does not do, regardless of how immersed a person is in this world, in materialism or in sorrows, regardless of what happens to the person, there is a level within the soul that remains intact, that remains as pure and as holy as God himself is. That level can never be touched or influenced by anything. That also explains why sometimes you have Jews that are completely unaffiliated, or I hate that word, but completely disconnected maybe from anything, and completely, but when push comes to shove, something awoke in them, and something shatters them, like some divine revelation comes and changes their lives. That's because that Yechida Shebanefesh, the fifth level of the soul, is awakened. It explains why many Jews, when confronted, are you Jewish or not? Even if that meant, if you are Jewish, you're going to go to the gas chambers, they said yes. Because the fifth level of the soul is that level that remains intact and remains pure and truthful, and nothing can influence it. Now, on Yom Kippur, we experience the revelation of that fifth level, an experience that doesn't exist on any other day of the year, only on Yom Kippur. That's the Yechida Shebanefesh that again is experienced during the prayer of Ne'ilah on Yom Kippur. Now, why am I mentioning this? Because when we're able to come face to face with that fifth level of the soul, which we all do, whether we feel it or not, whether we are conscious about it or not, but we all do, then we change, we are transformed. And we are transformed to the point that every filth is shed, is like leaves us automatically. It's like we get this complete shock treatment, so to speak, that everything, every mood that we were in now falls apart. It's that complete awakening. That happens on Yom Kippur. And that's also where the atonement comes from. It's the awakening of the deepest part of the soul that then sheds automatically almost all of the filth that it may have accumulated throughout the year. And that's why, by the way, if you had to pick one of the 5 prayers to come to, it's not called Nidre, even though it's a beautiful prayer. I know most people come to call it, but it's Ne'ilah. There's a feeling, I don't know, I'm sure you've all felt it. There's a feeling on Ne'ilah that doesn't exist any other time of the year. You can't explain it. Yes, Hannah.
I just want to say that yesterday was what was his name? I just had it. The one that was murdered, Pearl.
Daniel Pearl.
Daniel, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
thank you. Yesterday was his 20th yahrzeit that he was
Oh,
murdered.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Wow.
yesterday, because I'm involved with Stand With Us, and they had a special about it, which was excellent. And and they said that when they were cutting his throat, he said, my father was a Jew, my mother was a Jew, and I am a Jew. And it was very, very moving, because I felt that we were such a people, it's like, here he is being murdered by the Afghanistans, and yet he sits there on the ground and he says, I'm a Jew, my parent, it was just.
Yeah, that's a great example of that Yechida Shebanefesh that just is awakened. He also added, and my grandfather has a street named after him in Bnei Brak, Israel. Yeah. Why say that? Right? Why? But again, it's beyond logic. It's this complete revelation that shakes everything and sheds everything and returns you to your true essence. That's the Yechida Shebanefesh.
And his mother just unfortunately passed away. So.
I did not know.
Yeah, well, I follow him because,
Yeah.
too.
I know that after his passing, they wrote a book based on that line that he said, I'm a Jew, my father's a Jew. And that book is a compilation of all sorts of articles by all sorts of renowned Jews on this line of I am a Jew. What does it mean to you?
And also his father started the foundation, you know, in his memory. Anyway, thank you.
No, thank you. Yes, Gila.
Oh, I have no idea.
Okay.
There were so many thoughts I had over the course of the last couple of minutes. Yes, now I have it. When people get closer to death, or when people are facing death or confronting, as Hannah said, the moment where they know they're going to meet Hashem, they're going to reunite, the neshama is going back to its source. It almost makes sense that that's what would happen, because the Pintalayid, as you describe it, Bivli, in Hebrew,
Right.
in Yiddish, the Pintalayid, the little dot that's in all of us, that's the Jew, is whether we acknowledge it, feel it, or sense it, the time will eventually, most likely, come in the life of most people prior to death, if hopefully early in life, but if not, eventually it seems to find its way. And is it perhaps because we're on this transport, this train, this good train, this happy place to Hashem. So we're on our way.
Right.
We know we're on our way, and we know that we're reconnecting.
Right. No, well said. That's right. And it's true. It often happens when we face death, or when we face very, very, revolutionary moments in life. But sometimes it just happens out of the blue. And Rabbi Steinsaltz would often tell the story of a professor in Israel who came from a very secular background and came from a kibbutz. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he started to reconnect to his own Judaism and engage himself more and more. And Rabbi Steinsaltz asked him the question. Each time Rabbi Steinsaltz would tell this story, he would cry. And I've heard it from him just so many times. But he once confronted this professor and he asked him, so what made you reconnect? And he said, look, I was reading the Bible one day, and all of a sudden I read this verse that says, L'maaseh yadecha ichsof. God tells us through a prophet that he yearns for the actions of our hands. He yearns for our good deeds. He yearns. God yearns for us. And that hit him. That awoke that Yechida Shebanefesh, that Pintalayid, like you called it, in him. And he said, if God yearns for me, who am I not to yearn for him? And it changed his life. Just that verse. He didn't face death. He didn't face any crisis. He just stumbled upon a verse and it changed his life. Sometimes it's awakened even out of nowhere.
Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz was not raised in any kind of a religion. I think he was 25 when he started.
No, much earlier. He was 14 years old.
Oh, 14.
When he really, yeah. But look, again, all these are labels too. Rabbi Steinsaltz would often say that I am much more observant than my father ever was. And my father was much more Jewish than I ever will be. Mm-hmm. His father was a very proud Jew. So again, all these are labels, but I'm speaking about the connection here. Connection and what can really trigger it. Yes, Joyce.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts of what we're talking about, and they're jumping around. But when you just said connection, and I keep hearing or feeling like I can just speak for myself that every one of the experiences I have are like pearls that are threaded together. They're separate pearls. They're different experiences of my Judaism. Sometimes, I had to fight to let people know I was Jewish, when I was much younger. Sometimes I took it for granted because I thought, well, we're Jewish, of course. But then other kinds of experiences. But as I'm listening, I love when you say how there's no labels, because if I even put a label on myself, it would be hurtful.
Right.
But I want to keep that light open. A very dear friend, I think I mentioned to you, Dr. Karl Hammerschlag passes.
Yeah.
And we were very close. And his on Shabbos before he died on Shabbos, but right before he left the office, he called me, and I couldn't get the phone at the time, and he said he's leaving the office. Shabbat Shalom, Joycey. I'm leaving the office now. This is my last call.
Wow.
Before I leave.
Wow.
And yeah, and I'm thinking, do we really have a last call, or is there a message there?
Right.
And I'm not asking for someone. This is what, there's a lot. I feel like my body has been vibrating. It sounds
right.
Very much.
Right. No, it's very moving what you just described. Look, I'll relate to it, if I may, in two separate ways. I mean, we've spoken about this idea that a part of our soul, if we're speaking about, the 5 levels of the soul, so part of the soul remains up there in heaven, as we've spoken about, and it sends signals to us throughout our lives, almost every day, and tells us what to do, what not to do. That's why sometimes we have these deep intuitions about things. These are the signals of the soul that can see everything from up there and send signals to the person: go right, go left, do this, don't do that. Now, when death comes, that soul knows it up there. So it sends signals, powerful signals. Very often, that's why people can somewhat of a sensation that death is imminent. It goes beyond that. Sometimes, the angel of death reveals himself. Stories like that in the Talmud. But that's one aspect of it. And then the other aspect of it, and now I'll relate to your question, Linda. I know you're raising your hand, but the other aspect of it is that, yes, we don't always know. But we should, as the ethics of our fathers teaches us, we should, you said, is the last call. We should relate to every day as if it was the last call. And if we relate to every day as if it was the last call, then when that last call actually comes, we'll die even with a smile, recognizing that we don't waste a day. We don't waste a moment. We lived our lives meaningfully and purposefully. We did our very best. But those who don't, Rabbi Steinsaltz, he has a book called Simple Words, and he mentions that there, where he says that those that are concerned about life will not be concerned about death. Those who are not concerned about life will be concerned about death. What does this mean? Those who are concerned about life and living life meaningfully and truly making the best out of every moment, when death comes, they'll look back and they'll say, okay, I lived my life meaningfully, done my very best, and they won't be concerned. Okay, my time is up, but at least I did the best I could. But if you're not concerned about life, if you let life squander, if you squander in life every moment and every opportunity, and just let life go by, or as John Lennon says it, right, that life is what happens to you when you're busy making other plans, or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah. If you live life like that, then when death comes, you'll be concerned about that. You say, oh gosh, no, give me some more time. I didn't accomplish anything. So that's the other side of it, that every day must be the last call. Right? Yes, Linda.
So I just wanted to share an experience because I've seen more death than many. I had a patient who I was rounding on in the hospital who was, I thought, fairly stable. And the patient told me they were going to die tonight. And I no, you're not. Things are looking better. Damn it, if they didn't die that night. And it was just kind of like, it was so profound. It only happened once, but it's like, it stuck with me. There was something that this person knew or felt or something, but it was very, quite profound, that they knew something. Right.
I mean, they say that certainly the righteous know. The righteous know when they'll die, they know the angel of death is around. There's a whole passage in the Talmud where, Talmudic sages had a visit by the angel of death. And they told the angel of death, hey, you have to come now? Give me 30 days. Rav Ashi told the angel of death, give me 30 days. And he gave him 30 days. And stories like that. Or the angel of death saying, hey, there was another Talmudic sage who told the angel of death that had come to visit him that, why are you coming to me? I still haven't fulfilled this mitzvah. And the angel of death gave him a pass. But anyway, so that sometimes the righteous see the angel of death, but sometimes because they're so in tune with the soul above that they know, Purim is coming up. Was supposed to come up this month, but this year we have 2 months of Adar because it's a leap year. So Purim falls on the 2nd month of Adar. But since it's Rosh Chodesh today, Purim is coming up. I'll never forget. I think it was in 1996 or 1997. One of the great Hasidic masters of this generation, who was known as the Baal Lev Simcha. It's interesting, he passed away during the month of Simcha. He was named Simcha. His name was Simcha. Simcha meaning happiness. Simcha Alter, Rabbi Simcha Alter. He was named Lev Simcha after the books that he wrote. But during a Purim gathering, it's videotaped, he told his Hasidim who had come together for Purim that, and he was fully healthy, it was okay. He said to them that today I'm going to die. Today I'm going to die. And a few hours later, lo and behold, he died. How did he know? They know. And
it's all in your feelings. It's in feelings.
Right, somehow that strong signal, right?
It's a feeling that you have, and it's real. And I'm having that happen with a friend right now, and that's what she wrote me. I said, I want to come and be with you. She's at the hospice. They won't let you in now. And she said, I feel you with me all the time. And I can't think of a more beautiful thing she could have told me. And I believe that you can feel.
Right.
And that's a lot right there.
Yeah.
She's a Jewish
Anyhow,
friend,
but
by the way.
again, going back to the point
friend. I
that
want
we
you to
can.
know.
Sorry?
She's a Jewish friend. I'm going to send you so you can say a prayer for her.
Oh, please. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. But going back to what we can do and what we ought to do is treat every day as the last day. Really. Shuv yom echad lifnei mitatach. In the words of the ethics of our fathers, return one day before you die. We don't know what we're going to die. So return every day. Life looks different. Life is different when we treat every day as the last day. If we do, then the petty things of life don't even touch us. If we think we have all life long to live, then we get all of a sudden conquered by all these little petty trivial things. Mm-hmm. But if today's my last day and someone cut me in the street, so what? So what? I don't have time to get angry. I'm dying today. Mm-hmm. So you don't get involved with petty things. It changes your life to live every day as if it was your last. Chafetz Chaim, one of the great also rabbis of previous generation, the early 1900s, Rabbi Yisrael Kagan. I happen to have his book right here. That's how he looked like, the Chafetz Chaim. And he wrote a whole book about gossiping, slandering, and how careful we have to be with our tongue, which is what this book is, Chafetz Chaim. But he famously said, and I may have said this in the past, that how Forrest Gump says that life is like a box of chocolate. You never know what you're going to get or something like that. Well, he said that life is like a postcard. Why? It's because if you remember when we used to write postcards, they don't exist anymore. At the beginning, you wrote the postcard as if you had all the space in the world. So you wrote in big letters. But when you reached that postcard, you said, gosh, I have so much more to write. And you started writing in smaller and smaller letters and then squeezing your words everywhere around the postcard, at the back of the postcard. It says life is like a postcard. At the beginning, you think you have all the time in the world. So you squander your time and you write in big letters. But then you get slowly but surely, you get towards the end, you say, gosh, I don't have that much time left. Let me try and squeeze in as much as I can. That's human nature.
That's great.
Yeah.
Rabbi,
Yes.
I just have one. You made me laugh with that.
Yeah.
I think like kids, and so I'm thinking the live the last as if it's your last day, and I'm thinking though, but then the first day you're born, that's another way to twist your mind a little bit too, because, oh, this is an amazing day. I have so much I can discover.
Yeah.
How like a baby is, everything is new and exciting as opposed to, oh yeah, well, I've done that. Okay. I'm just saying they both seem to go together to me. They both
Right.
seem to be
Right.
kind of connected in some way.
Right, because both share the same perspective, making the important and the trivial.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Be grateful and yeah. That's one of the great complaints I personally have against God, and maybe you'll disagree with me, but I think that the fact that God made us be born in this world at the age of 0 is a travesty. Because at the age of 0, you're not so much aware of your surroundings, and then you start to grow up thinking that really you're entitled to this world. You're entitled to a good home. You're entitled to a good bed. If God just imagine, if God had created us and thrown us into this world at the age of 30, when our mind is already fully developed, we would look at the world differently. We'd say, oh, wow, that's a beautiful mountain. Oh, wow, I have this bed. Oh, wow. Our mind would react differently to the world. Maybe we would be much more grateful. But he created us at the age of 0. And it's like that frog experiment, right? That you learn about in science, that you put a frog on a pan and you slowly but surely increase the heat. The frog died because it didn't feel that the heat was coming. But if you put a frog in a hot pan, you already put the fire on and you put it on, it jumps out. Why? Because it realizes what it is. Like if we were 30 years old, we would jump in astonishment at the world that God has given us. We'd be as grateful as we could. But we're like that frog. Oh, we take everything granted and we die in that pot, so to speak. So that's one of the great complaints I have. But it would make life more meaningful, really. But what can you do? All right. Let's continue, unless, of course, there's other comments and ideas, but otherwise we can continue at the bottom of page 120. Any other comments? No? Okay, let's continue. Bottom of 120. Does anyone want to read? Unless Diana, you want to continue?
I'll read.
Hila, please, covered.
Sure.
Please.
And again, all the holidays, festivals, and memorials have many features, often seen as difficult restrictions or customs, each one of which grows organically out of the fundamental idea of the sacred day to which it belongs. Thus, in order for a person to gain the benefit of the special day, he must concentrate his energies and focus his consciousness on the significant idea and its symbolic representations. He has to attune himself to catch its resonance. The numerous and various details of the commandments then cease to be burdensome and are accepted wholly as an outer expression, the clear and unspecified relationship of the person with the fundamental spiritual experience.
Right, beautiful. So a person is really part of living life meaningfully, as we mentioned before, is being in tune with the energy of the moment or the energy of the day. Now, the holidays each holiday carries its own energy, so to speak. And really, it's our duty to be in tune with that energy so that not only it enriches us, but that also it empowers us then to become those lights that are multi-layered lights through those many energies to the world around us. But, reminded me of reading, there's this joke about this guy whose printer broke down. It happened to the best of us, right? So he calls the printer factory and he says to them, my printer broke down. The guy tells him, hey, what's the problem? He says, so-and-so. He says, I'll tell you how to fix it. Like this, you don't have to come here. The guy was so impressed. He tells the guy in the printer factory, he says, wow, that's so nice of you. You're so honest. You know, other people would tell me to come, I would spend hundreds of dollars, and you're telling me how to fix it at home. I really appreciate your honesty. The guy in the printer factory says to him, well, don't thank me, thank my boss. He's told me to do that. He says, really? Wow, I'll thank your boss too. He says, why did your boss tell you to do this? He says, because my boss knows that when people try to fix their own printers, they create such bad damage that then they can charge, we can charge you twice the amount. But why am I thinking of this? Because sometimes, you know, we're so immersed in ourselves. It's me, my problems, my headaches, my emotions, my feelings. And we try to fix ourselves. And that's fine. I mean, everyone has to fix themselves, but being preoccupied with yourself, that's the problem. And then we create more damage. And sometimes what is needed, and that's why God gives us festivals. Come out of yourself, come out of your bubble. Yeah, I'm offering you a gift. Be in tune with the gift I'm giving you right now. This gift is a special gift. There's a special energy to it. It's come out of that fixing your own printer. Come out of yourself, and you'll see your printer will be fixed automatically almost if you can just be in tune with the gifts that I'm giving you. And that's why we have holidays. It's God being kind to us by giving us gifts of energies, so to speak. And the more we can be in tune with the holidays through its observances and through, of course, its celebrations, the better we can also, the more we can come out of our bubble, but the better also we can be receptive to God's lights and to God's different energies that then heal us and heal the world. So that's really what Rabbi Steinsaltz is saying here in this little paragraph. There are two opening questions in the Bible. One opening question is, where are you? When Adam and Eve sinned, God called out to Adam and he said to him, Ayeka, where are you? That's God's question to man. Fast forward to Moses. Moses also has a question for God. And he says to God, well, when God reveals himself in the burning bush to Moses, he says to him, Moses says to God, look, I don't want to go. Mi anochi ki elech el paro. Who am I? Now, what's interesting is that God doesn't answer Moses, who am I? He doesn't tell him, you're Moses, you're talented, you speak Egyptian, and you speak Hebrew, and you're the perfect fit. He doesn't tell him that. God ignores that question altogether. Because God's only question is, where am I? Not who am I? Life's only question is, where am I? Not who am I? It's me versus the world, not me versus me. It's not all about me. It's about my surroundings. Where am I? What are my responsibilities towards the outside? Ayeka. What are you doing towards the world around you, for the world around you? Who am I? Some people never figure that out, but that's fine as long as they're in tune with the outside. With, again, the energies of the outside, the energies of the holidays, the energies of the needs and the responsibilities that they have towards the outside. So God wants us to ask, Ayeka, where are you? He doesn't want us to ask, who am I? That will leave for a different time. Maybe, at the age of 120, we'll look back and we'll say, oh, that's who I was. But now we have to ask the question every day of, where am I? And that question not only is more answerable, but also that question gives birth to meaning, purpose, impact, influence, and energies that become in tune with our own and turn us into healers and beacons of light to the world.